Hello and good morning from Massachusetts to everyone joining our session. We welcome you to a conversation with Boston College alumni from around the world. We'll get started in about 30 seconds. We just want to make sure everyone interested in joining the session is able to access the Zoom room and get comfortable. So we'll give it about 30 seconds. Okay, it looks as though participants are leveling off, so we can get started. Let me introduce myself first. My name is David Weber. I'm an associate director in the Office of Undergraduate Admission. I'm also one of 6 associate directors in our office that works with our international students. In a typical year, we would have spent a good portion of the fall and maybe even parts of the spring traveling throughout the world, visiting you at your school and within your city. And I can honestly say that is part of my job that I really missed the most over this past year and a half, connecting with students from around the world. And I know we've been able to do it over Zoom, but it has always been a treat to do it in your home city. So with that, I'm glad you're connecting with us again today. And if you are joining us from here in the US, from North America, or of course within our Central and South America regions, good morning to you folks in Europe, through South Asia and Africa, Eastern Europe, good afternoon to you. And then for our folks in East Asia and Australia, Southeast Asia, good evening. We're thrilled that you're here with us. What I hope to do over the next 45 minutes is just moderate a conversation with 3 wonderful Boston College alums that represent different areas of our world, have had different life experiences, have approached Boston College in their own personal way, and just ask some questions. And I encourage you as our participants to ask some questions as well. And that's as easy as inserting a question into the Q&A button on your Zoom screen. So at the bottom of your screen, just pop open the Q&A button, insert whatever question that you'd like, and we'll do our best to get to those questions, to ask our alums what their perspective and what their experience was like with regards to Boston College. But with that, I also want to mention that if you're tuning into this session, whether you be an admitted student or a parent or family member of an admitted student, congratulations. We are absolutely thrilled to offer you admission to Boston College, and we welcome you to the class of 2025. We also know that over the next 3 weeks, you have a lot of great offers in hand, and you have a lot of big decisions to make. So use the resources like this webinar, but also other webinars that exist within your admitted student portal, and reaching out to your admission counselor, the person that exists within your applicant portal, if you do have questions along the way. With that, I want to get the conversation started and open it up first for some introductions, and then we'll get into some questions. Joining us from Melbourne, Australia is Anita Wong. From Jakarta, Indonesia is Emmeline Hambali. And from Bogota, Colombia, Luli Castellos de Sampa. So I guess, Anita, if we could start with you, I think a personal introduction first, a little bit about where you're from, your journey to Boston College, and where you are now and what your life looks like in Australia. From there, Emmeline, if you could go, and then Luli, and then we'll open it up to some more questions. But just take a couple minutes and tell our participants a little bit about who you are and your journey through BC.
Sure, thank you. So my name is Anita. I am born and raised in Hong Kong. Class of 97, Boston College, graduated with a finance and MIS degree. I actually started my journey in the US when I was studying in high school. This is actually all the way back in Cleveland, Ohio. And then I chose Boston College. Have been back in Hong Kong after I graduated and started my career in banking. And then after about 3-4 years in banking, I went to consulting for about 10+ years before I joined back my family business, which is in manufacturing in China and Hong Kong. My family, myself, which is my husband, myself, and 2 of my children have actually recently, just when I say recently, just basically the past month, moved to Australia. So we actually now sitting in a new home in Melbourne. So at the moment, I am actually, in terms of my career, Still managing the manufacturing business, but we are in the process of basically managing from far away. And I also spend actually most of my time on investment more than anything now. Yeah, so I think Australia is going to be my home for quite some time. Although I didn't foresee it that way, I was actually foreseeing or planning to do a bit of travel back and forth, but because obviously with COVID and the different quarantines requirement, and with my children being in school at quite a young age, I probably have to stay in Australia for at least a year or a year and a half before I actually can go back to Hong Kong. So we are trying to do quite a bit of what we're doing right now, Zoom, and a lot of phone calls, obviously, and see how it goes.
Great, thank you, Anita. Appreciate that. Emily.
Hi, I'm Emmeline. I'm currently in Jakarta, Indonesia. I'm BC class, CSOM class of 2000. So I studied management when I was in BC. I started education in Indonesia. I left home at around 13 years old. I was in Singapore for about 4 years before I moved to the US to take my bachelor's degree. I went back to Indonesia for a little bit to start work. I was a little bit culture shocked after most of my kind of sort of adult-ish life. So I actually left home again and ended up in Sydney, Australia for a couple of years. I started my career there working for a consulting company. And then after that will be 10 years away from my family. My parents kind of sort of said, come home. Otherwise, I think I would never come home. So I actually came home. They lured me with, you can work wherever you want. And then so I tried to apply for a few positions, got a few offers, and then my family business kind of sort of said, okay, we'll double whatever the highest offer. So I ended up working for the family with a promise of a 5-year arrangement. I have been in my family business now for 20 years. We work in plastic manufacturing. Our company, we work in 6 countries. So before COVID, I had the privilege to travel all around the world, but mostly China, Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, Singapore, and Indonesia. And it's been a great journey. I get to meet a lot of interesting people and reconnect with a lot of my BC friends while I'm traveling in Asia.
Thank you, Emily. Luli.
So I guess we're all School of Management alums here. First of all, congratulations to all of you, admitted students, and to the very proud parents who may be joining us in this webinar. You have a great opportunity in your hands, and here we have 3 testaments of that. I am also a School of Management alum. I graduated in '91, so I'm the older one of the bunch. I was actually raised in Brazil, and then went to BC. I met my husband there, who's Colombian, and we got married after college, and I've been living in Colombia since then. I work for Johnson & Johnson. I've been with J&J for 24 years. I'm in the medical devices sector of Johnson & Johnson, and I lead MedTech for Latin America. Coming out of BC, what I studied in BC, I majored in marketing, and absolutely loved my experience in BC. And coming out of that, I actually went back to Brazil, started working in the pharmaceutical OTC, or over-the-counter business, worked for GlaxoSmithKline for a couple of years. And when I got married, which I got married in Brazil and then moved to Bogota, I started working with J&J. And so it's been a hell of a ride. Like I told you, I married my boyfriend from BC. We have 4 children, And our eldest is also a BC alum. She graduated from Arts and Sciences as a Communications and Art History major. And she graduated in 2018. So it's a pleasure to be here today with you, David.
Fabulous. Thank you, Lily. And thank you, Emily and Anita. I really appreciate that. And yes, Carroll School of Management is well represented. I'm sure there are some viewing today that are excited to hear about your experience within Carroll. Let's ask a couple questions first. And again, to our participants, feel free to put in questions in the Q&A button. But if we can kind of reflect back to some of your first impressions about Boston College, moving to the United States or moving to at least a new city for you within the United States to explore Boston College. One, what was it that drew you to choose Boston College at the time of the decision-making process in your college search? And two, when you got there, what did you think? What was it like? What was the culture and community like when you arrived on campus?
Can I jump in?
Absolutely.
So for me, Boston is an amazing city. I mean, in the sense from a college town perspective. Somebody told me once, I don't know, David, if this information is true or not, but that during the school year, 70% of the population of Boston is between 18 and 28 years of age.
The percentage may be somewhere in there. I know it's close to 250,000 university students that make up the greater Boston area. Yeah, it's America's college town.
So there you go. So anyways, it's an amazing town. It's very young and bubbly and fun, and so choosing BC was, I would say, when I went, it was a little bit by chance. I love the concept that it was a Jesuit university. And that it was in Boston. I didn't have the opportunity to visit before getting into the university. But what I can tell you, and I loved it, I absolutely loved it. But what I can tell you is that when I went to take my daughter to BC, it was like dropping her off at home. I knew she was in an amazing university, in an amazing town, that she was going to be very well taken care of, and that the values of that university completely aligned with our values. So maybe when I went, it was a little bit, not knowing where I was going to land, although I had some ideas, but it definitely was the right choice when my daughter went to school. And I absolutely loved the experience.
Lily, I appreciate you saying that you hadn't been there prior to being admitted, because many students this year in particular have not actually been to campus given travel restrictions. Emily and Anita, what were some of your first impressions? Maybe you had visited prior to enrolling, but like Lily, today's student also finds themselves in a similar situation.
Well, I had the privilege of actually going to BC a couple of years before I applied, but I fell in love with the campus. I mean, just walking in there and the buildings, and I think it felt I don't know, it felt like a place that I wanted to be part of, and that's, I mean, I applied to a few schools in the Boston area, and fortunately enough, I got offers from all the schools that I applied, but BC had that kind of sort of lasting impression. I remember, I think one of the first buildings I saw was not the first building, but I went to the quad, and I kind of thought, yeah, this is it. It was an easy choice for me.
I too, back then, I too actually had not visited the campus prior to my actually going to the university. But obviously there was a lot of information being given to us by the college council on campus within my high school. I have to agree to both Emily and Lily. I mean, obviously Boston itself is a very amazing city, town for young people. There's so many amazing activities you can do outside of campus. And obviously, I think the main thing about Boston College that strike me, and which I was so glad that I actually made the decision to go on without even visiting, is that I only realized afterwards is, Boston, as much as there are many other universities in the Boston area, Boston College does has a very included campus. So it's like its own fortress almost. So you feel really like a community among your fellows, classmates, your professors, and everyone within campus. You feel like you have a little country almost. And that's a great feeling for young people, because you are in an area with like-minded individuals, often with very similar values, and there to make friends, to learn, to be inspired. And it's a beautiful campus with a mixture of both modern and traditional buildings. To me, that's like the American dream college town, basically. It's like what you've seen on TV almost.
We like to think of it that way too, Anita. Yeah, there's this famous quote by the American writer Mark Twain, where he kind of compares the cities in the Northeast, and he says, in New York, they ask you, how much do you make? What are you worth? And in Philadelphia, they ask you, what do your parents do? And in Boston, they ask you, what do you know? It's an intellectual city. It's a place where people come to exchange ideas and to learn about each other. And I think about Boston College and where we sit in Chestnut Hill with the other universities that are just off of the T line or in various neighborhoods around the city. There really is nowhere else quite like it. It is an incredibly dynamic place and an international hub. And I think for a lot of students from around the world who may be tuning in, knowing that you can fly right into Boston, you're downtown at Logan Airport, and via RT or just a quick car service, you're at any of the campuses that make up our metro area. So it is convenient, it is dynamic, there's great energy. Lily, you had talked a little bit about the values of Boston College and being something that has aligned with your family and important as you dropped your daughter off. It felt like home to you. When we're talking about values, I think students often look at Boston College's heritage. It's Catholic, it's Jesuit, and the reality is there's some students that identify with that, and there's some students that don't. There's some students who say, I'm looking at Boston College and I want to enroll there because it's one of the world's great Catholic universities. There's other students who say, that Catholic Jesuit religious piece is actually the question I have, and how does that fit for me, given my personal background, not being part of a faith tradition? Could the three of you talk a little bit about maybe what that heritage means to you, and given your own personal experiences being a Catholic Jesuit university?
Yeah. So what I'll tell you is that I am Catholic, but my roommate in BC was Jewish. And she's the one who introduced me to my husband. So the way I see Boston College is, it's not like you are forced to live the Catholic tradition at all. For me, the beauty of the Jesuit education is that it's very liberal. It's very embracing of different trends of thought. And you can have your own faith living in BC. That was my experience with my roommate. But it's the value system, irrespective of the religion per se, that is what I think that is so innate to Boston College. It's that concept of always thinking about giving back to the community. It's the concept of being respectful of diversity and equity and inclusion. It's about being good citizens. So those are the values that for me are are very prevalent in Boston College. If you want to live your tradition, your Catholic tradition, if you're Catholic, you can do that too. I actually did my confirmation in Boston College. So my other roommate was my confirmation sponsor. So for me, it's more about the value system per se than the religious formation. That was my experience. And I could say that, you know, for fast forward many years, that was my daughter's experience as well.
Great. Emlyn, Anita, any thoughts on kind of the heritage of Boston College and perhaps what that's meant in your experience?
Well, I appreciated, I think, the opportunity to learn. I come from a Christian family. I went to, I don't think I learned, I wasn't given the opportunity to learn what I learned in Boston College. I appreciated the classes. I mean, I think when I went to BC, I didn't think about it that way. I kind of dreaded taking philosophy and theology classes when I knew that my friends who went to other universities didn't have to take these classes. They had, you know, but today looking back, I really appreciated that because I think it formed the way I think. It gave me a different perspective, and when I make decisions and things like that, it kind of gave me a different angle, because then it opens your mind to a lot of different things. We all grow up in different backgrounds, kind of taught and trained a certain way. What is right and wrong? What is right and wrong is always what's right and wrong. But I guess the way you go about findings of the way you dissect the problem, and that's something that I really truly appreciate. Not maybe not so much when I was there, but now looking back when I'm at the workplace, you know, these perspectives gives me more insight. So I actually really enjoyed it today, like, you know, having that information. And I think that's it. It's a great added benefit of going to BC.
Yeah, like again, I don't think I was thinking too much about Boston College being a Jesuit university at the time when I was there. I'm not Catholic, but looking back, I think I appreciate a lot about that sort of background, just the fact that when you start working or when you look back of what you actually have learned, or just what sort of exposure or the sort of values that people around you, including especially the faculties and the professors, is you appreciate that background, because it's all about doing the right thing and giving back and being a good citizen. I think Lily mentioned that word. It's just being a good person and always think about giving back to the community. And that sort of mindset is actually very beneficial as you develop your career along the way, because, you know, as we all know, the more you're willing to give in different manners, oftentimes you find yourself rewarded in multiple ways in return. So, yeah, but when I was in school, it wasn't a conscious choice. And I wasn't thinking it like day in, day out about.
I think today's student, you know, approaching Boston College in 2021 is very similar, where there are some, like I mentioned, that identify BC, having that heritage, and that's why they're applying, and others who really find out about it once they arrive on campus and get ready to attend class for the first time in the fall. Everybody's at a different stage, right? And Emlyn, I like that you had mentioned some hesitancy with some of the core requirements, the philosophy, theology. You're not alone. There are students that look at the university core curriculum at BC and say, I'm not sure how some of these courses align with my end goal. I know I have to take them, so I'm going to do it. But I believe, like you, an appreciation develops, whether it's immediately because it's a class that they perhaps were a little nervous about, but it becomes one of their favorite classes, or something that they experience that has really opened up a new way to think that impacts the way they approach their professional life, their personal life. Today's student at Boston College, I think, still has those same feelings as they arrive and look at the core curriculum at BC. But we're proud of that core curriculum because that's really one of the formative pieces of the BC education. Let's talk a little bit about the educational piece in more depth. So 3 Carroll School graduates. Now, for those who are viewing the presentation, about 65% of the students are actually in the Morrissey College of Arts and Sciences. About a quarter are in the Carroll School of Management, about 5% in the Lynch School of Education and Human Development, and about 5% in the Cannell School of Nursing. But we have 3 Carroll School grads. With that, what was that experience like within the Carroll School in terms of preparation and how that preparation has led to professional opportunities for you as well? Can you reflect on some of your experiences as you went through the Carroll School and how perhaps that has prepared you for your first and later professional opportunities?
Yeah, maybe I'll jump here. For me, the preparation, I'll tell you the honest truth. When I was in, after 2 years of School of Management, where the core is a lot of numbers, right? So you have accounting, statistics, economics, I was going crazy because I said, you know, I'm going to move to arts and sciences. I was more of my thing was marketing, right? But I didn't get to take my marketing classes until later on in the 4 years. So I was very immersed in the numbers piece, and it got to a point that I was up to here and I wanted to, you know, study communications or do something different. I wasn't that happy. And I was about to switch schools and my parents said, no way, you're gonna complete that because, you know, all of this side more, more PR-ish or whatever, something that is more innate to you. And this is the learning process. You have to complete the learning process. If you want to do something related to PR or whatever later, that's fine, but this gives you the foundation. So what I ended up doing was I put all of my electives together and I went for a semester abroad in Florence. And that semester was like kind of like my, like the release. And I studied figure drawing. I have no idea how to draw anything. I studied Italian, I studied art history, etc. And it was just like this chill. And then I went back and it was all marketing and it was heaven. So put it all together. And what I'm telling you here is that the discipline and the rigor of the curriculum is outstanding, but it's equally tough, at least for me. But the school provides you also these opportunities to be able to go abroad and to be able to kind of like, do a medley of what you want to maximize your experience. And at the end, when you hone into what you really love, which is probably going to be your major, it's like home free. So the experience overall is just outstanding for me.
Excellent. Emlyn or Anita, any thoughts on kind of what that academic culture looked like for you?
Maybe I can answer.
I think
company is a head of HR.
Emlyn, you froze on us for just a
Asia.
moment there. Hopefully we can get the feedback. Okay. Anita, how about?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think Emlyn's going to try to reconnect.
No worries.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm back. Sorry. Go ahead.
Go
ahead.
Thanks, Emlyn.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Emlyn. Go ahead and finish your thought. Thank you. Please.
You want me to go ahead?
Yeah, Emlyn, go ahead.
Whatever you were just saying, we couldn't hear it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess I kind of want to answer the other way around. So one of the roles that I take in what I do today is I take an HR role. So oftentimes I recruit people. I think when I look back into my education and the readiness when I go into the workforce and what I do today as a recruiter, I feel that the education that is provided by Boston College, the curriculum that was like the entire curriculum that is provided by Boston College gives the right background. Oftentimes I see a lot of applicants that come in who are very specialized, very specific, and they don't bring with them perspective. So kind of like the idea of a holistic education, right? I know that's a term that is kind of oftentimes overused, but it is when we recruit people into the company, we're not looking for somebody who can just do one thing. It is as important to do to be able to do the academics as well as your soft skills and your ability to communicate. And those are things that I believe that whatever I received in Boston College, even classes like English, when you have to take writing 101 or one of those basic writing classes, it really did help me in my career. And when I want to recruit, those are things that I look for in people. I look for people who can not just do the job. If I'm hiring an engineer, it's not like I'm just looking for somebody who can do engineering stuff. I'm looking for somebody who can write, somebody who can communicate, somebody who understands what teamwork is, somebody who understands the concept of perspective of other people. So those are things that I believe that Boston College provided for me.
Yeah, great, thank you.
Yeah, I was actually,
yeah.
Sure. I was actually going to say something quite similar to what Emmeline has mentioned. So obviously, well, like I mentioned, I was major in finance, and I went into banking. So it did give me the technical skill set, which was required into banking. But I think much more importantly is not your know-how, your technical skills per se, because you actually, I think the technical skills or the curriculum or the number crunching per se, it's quite similar to probably many other universities as in the US. But what I found is maybe because Boston College is also quite a liberal arts background school as well. So because of that, it actually allows a lot of other courses that you take throughout the 4 years in Boston College that allows you to develop other perspective, like Lily and Emily mentioned, is your team working, your ability to work through problems, managing timelines, and a lot of soft skills that is actually far more important than how much numbering you can do. Again, that applies to my major. And what I also took as an electives, because within your major, there's so many courses you need to take, but then you also have other credits that you can take with whatever that interests you. So I took a lot of art and drawing classes, because that's actually my interest as well. So, and actually, to be honest with you, that actually benefits me quite a lot, much later on into my career recently, because I've been doing some work with galleries and, art investment and all that sort of thing. So I think, I guess in terms of curriculum, I never thought that would actually work in my benefits in terms of career when I was taking them. It was only because I just love drawing and arts. But I think the flexibility and the diversity of the curriculum within the university allows people with different passions to expose themselves with different things within that 4 years that might or might not, you never know, that might benefits you, or that might just let you enjoy your life a little bit more, even that 4 years.
That's the beauty of a liberal arts base, I would say, having that flexibility. For those watching the presentation, about a third of our students carry double majors. So that's very common at Boston College. I think almost every student I know at Boston College, if they're not double majoring, they have a minor in something. A minor is made up of 6 courses within a concentrated area. So students really can diversify their studies, really play to their interests. And as Anita said, who knows if that will have an immediate impact on your personal professional life, or something a few years down the road could open up an interesting conversation for you. So know that there is quite a bit of flexibility as you move through your 4 years. This question is interesting, and Luli, it was actually asked specifically to you, but I think Emlyn and Anita, your perspective, given your specific regions, would be interesting as well. But Luli, this is from a student in Brazil who is thinking about, what does the Boston College name and brand look like within Brazil, other areas in South America, Central America? What is the Boston College name and brand? How does it carry there? And maybe Anita and Emlyn, if you could talk about East and Southeast Asia as well.
Okay, well, it's been a while since I have been living in Brazil.
Right.
But what I can say is that BC internationally has become much more renowned. And I can speak definitely for Colombia, because I've been very involved as a BC alum, you know, to get the community to get to know more about Boston College. So, but what I can tell you is that among international companies or American companies anywhere in Latin America or anywhere else, Boston College is a very renowned school. So, and again, I work for an American company, and you know, J&J knows BC very, very well. So that would be maybe my answer. I can't attest today to how renowned Boston College is among Brazilian companies within Brazil, but within American companies, absolutely very well renowned. And if you're thinking about management, the School of Management is also has also a very strong brand name, if you will. And in Colombia, it's been growing incredibly. I'd love to know, I don't know if they have the statistics yet because everything is so soon, but the number of applicants from Colombia has been increasing steadily, and I believe from Brazil as well. So I hope I answered the question, not fully, but more or less.
Thanks, Luli. How about in East Asia or Southeast Asia? What does BC look like there?
I think during it definitely, I probably agree with Luli. It has definitely gained a little bit more notice in maybe the last 10 years. During my time, I think there's a lot of explaining for me to do. I think the other B school seems to have more notoriety, especially in Indonesia. I think it definitely, I think a lot of Indonesians go to the other B school. But yeah, definitely today, I think parents especially, and a lot of parents are entrepreneurs, so which means that they own companies, and so they would recruit people, so they understand today which B school they should be sending their kids to. So I think definitely that you hear a lot more about BC students in the workplace in Southeast Asia today as compared to before.
Yeah, I guess very similarly. I think the other B school that you were mentioning, because I guess it's the word, this is during my time when I first graduated. I think the word college itself confuses people in Asia sometimes. Oftentimes they will ask, is that a university even? But it doesn't happen nowadays anymore. So within Hong Kong, or I would say most of, I can't say the whole of China because I don't know it well enough, but I would say most of the major cities within China, they do understand that Boston College is a university and is a very good, well-regarded university. So definitely the brand name or has actually it's much better than when I was graduated during my time.
We have a student asking a question from Hong Kong. So hello to all of our friends in Hong Kong. And this is for all of you. Were there any challenges that you faced as an international student studying at BC or in Boston? Maybe some initial challenges or even lasting challenges that you could point to over the course of your time there.
The winter. That was
Fair
for
enough.
me the biggest challenge, because I was coming from Rio. So you can imagine what it was to go through 4 years of Boston winter. But other than that, that was the biggest challenge for me.
Sure.
Yeah, I can't think of anything either. I mean, I love the winter. And I can't remember. I mean, I think going from an Asian school system to you know, an American education, or maybe it's just a university setting. I think for me, it was kind of trying to get my own discipline and my own rhythm going in the beginning, but I don't see that it was a huge challenge. Obviously, there's like a lot of freedom that I didn't have in my previous, like, you know, my high school. But again, you know, those are all good things. And yeah, so I can't really say I don't think there's anything bad in my 4 years in BC.
Yeah.
I was going to say that I didn't mind the winter either, even though I came from Hong Kong, because I think I have to say, I'm not sure I can do Boston winter now because I'm much older, but back then it was easy. It was okay. And I didn't find it challenging as an international student. I mean, obviously, I think all the universities students as a freshman, you adjust, right? You adjust to basically establishing your own routines, you're making friends, you're figuring out, you know, what you like or what you don't like to do. But I don't recognize myself being an international student having more trouble. On the other hand, because we are coming from Asia, so I actually, I mean, although I spent 2 years in high school in the US, but university learning environment is very different from high school. So I've actually found that very liberating, just having, you know, studying at Boston College. I still remember the first class I went to, Economics 101, the big auditorium, and I never knew lessons and lecture could be so entertaining and learn, and you can learn at the same time, and all the projects that you get to do and how you actually manage yourself, and you feel like an adult, managing your own time, scheduling your meetings, that sort of thing. So, but as an international student, I didn't think I have any problems at all. And Boston is a very international town. So if you ever miss your home cooking, you know, your hometown food, every now and then there's plenty of choices. And there are plenty of other people from different cultures that you get to meet.
There was one thing that perhaps for me was a little bit, was a bit of a culture shock. And even though I went to an American school in Brazil, it was more about the culture shock of just, you know, Americans, because in the US, you cannot drink until you're 21. In Latin America, the drinking age is 18, but then, you know, it actually at that time was even more relaxed. So sometimes you get the sense that Americans are more like, they really want to get drunk. And that for me was a shocker, because I was like, why would you like want to go out? You know, one thing is that you drink socially and maybe, you know, you get a little bit, you know, you drink a little too much. But another thing is really having that desire to get drunk. And that for me was a culture shock. But again, just like everything, you just go through these learnings, how people are and how people work, and you just go through that. But it was a culture shock for me initially, because people used to tell me, no, be careful because you're going to be all alone, and then be careful with drugs, or be careful with this or what. And it's not about BC, it's about the college education abroad, right? And I had no encounter with hard drugs or anything like that, but the alcohol was something that was a bit of a shock at the beginning.
Sure, understandable. And I think, certainly something that most US universities, have their struggles with at times, when it comes to, students thinking about how can I best be social in this new independent world that I live in? And a lot of it comes down to personal decision making, but also, being a good community member and roommate as well. Yeah, that's a good point, Luli, for sure. We have time for one or two more questions, and switch gears a little bit on this question. Thinking about some of those social opportunities, having fun, getting involved on campus. A student named Sophie. So Sophie, congratulations on your admission to Boston College. Asked if you had participated in programs or clubs at BC and how you blended into the greater Boston College community. Another question just came in somewhat attached to that too. Did you feel a sense of belonging at BC through clubs, organizations, dorm life, friendships, those sorts of things?
I was part of the Asian Caucus and a representative of the, I don't know what it stands for, ICCBC, Indonesian something, but it was part of the Asian Caucus. I think it was a great way for me to kind of be a little bit more present, do something that's outside academics. I really enjoyed that. I did that for a couple of years. But I mean, if anything, I think what really kind of made BC home for me was actually staying on campus for the first year that I was in BC. I think a lot of international students, well, at least from during my time and my friends that I had, a lot of them jumped into freshman year staying off campus. And it was a little harder for them, I guess, because, you don't have that camaraderie of being, together as a freshman. So I actually really enjoyed my time, staying in the dorms, getting to know people, and there were a lot of people. And, it was a little bit shocking. I guess if there's any culture shock for me was the fact that in one building, although it was separated by floor, we had boys in our building, and but that was okay. I think that but it definitely gave me the opportunity to get to know my freshman class a little bit better.
So I too stay on campus in a boarding house my freshman year, and I'm forever grateful for those experiences. I was actually in Newton campus the first term, and then I realized it's a bit cold to wait for the bus. So I switched myself to the dormitory main campus and stayed in Xavier. I remember, I think the building was, which I really enjoyed. You made a lot of friends, and these on-campus students, they are not only international students, there's a lot of Americans, because obviously not everyone's from Boston. And you meet and you make great friends because you see them and you have a community of after school lives, and that really helped me to feel belong to the school. And I think meal times, actually just having dinners and having your breakfast or whatnot, that extra social on campus also make it feels like home. I was actually also involved in the Hong Kong club, but that was, I believe it's my senior year, my very last year, when I was in Boston College. But there are many clubs that you can join, and different people found their own, friendship through the clubs or through different courses by, through projects that you've done with your classmates. Yeah, so building a sense of belonging, it's definitely very easy. And I think mainly also because the campus is so inclusive. I think I mentioned that the first thing when I say how I feel about the campus. but it's not just the architectural of it, but it actually really builds a community. So you feel like you're really in a small little country, almost like a town. It feels like you belong to BC, you're BC girls, or yeah. So it was really a very enjoyable 4 years of my life. It was the best 4 years of my life. I shouldn't say that too loud. My husband is next door.
We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I would say I participated in a bunch of clubs, the Latin club, the marketing club, the whatever. I also lived on Newton my first year, and I love Newton campus because you become a sect. Like everybody who's from Newton is like proud to be from Newton, and you become a an even tighter community just because you have to grab the bus late at night and whatever. So, and the cafeteria and everything kind of
Yes.
like revolves there. So I thoroughly enjoyed Newton campus. And I can tell you, sense of belonging, absolutely. I mean, I meet with my roommates now we do it on Zoom. We used to meet every year live, but now we're doing it every month we meet. So imagine I graduated in 91. I don't even want to, it's 30 years. So, imagine that we meet every month by Zoom. So the sense of community that you create is, I mean, it's amazing, and it's for life. It's not just.
That's amazing. That is amazing. For those watching the presentation, if you are curious about some more of the residential life conversation, there's some great videos and information on the Residential Life website. So I encourage you to look at that. Also, if you're thinking about how many years of campus housing you have, that is noted in your decision letter, in your admission notification, probably in the third paragraph. And we guarantee every student at BC at least 3 years of housing. And then 50% of our students receive 4 years of housing. So really, it is a residential experience. We want you to live on campus and engage with each other. So take a look at that. But if you do have some additional residential life questions, Residential Life is a great resource for you. So I think we have time for one last question. And for this question, I would just like to ask the three of you, thinking about the students that are considering leaving their home and heading to the US or other parts of the world, because everyone has interesting options. But the students that perhaps are going to be heading to Boston College, what sort of advice would you give them as they approach their future? What are some of the things that you would point to based off of your experience or things that you know now that you hope for this class of 2025?
I think make the most out of your 4 years. I think yeah, I can't remember who said it, but I think Anita said it. It's the best 4 years of your life. Don't waste it.
It is very true. Yeah, agree. I mean, just fully be prepared and just fully participate that 4 years. Be as open-minded as you can. And in terms of not just learning, but also meeting friends and be inspired, speaking with professors or seeing the city. It is, I don't want to say I promise, but it is actually, I believe I've spoken with a lot of our friends whom we met back in Boston College, which I also still stay in touch with. We still joke and rave about that's still the best 4 years of our lives, and there's a lot of truth to it, and a big part of it is really just be open-minded and fully participated as part of Boston College. And just be and just understand that you're there to learn, to make friends, to take challenges, to take risk, basically. Take lots of risk. And oftentimes is some of the most rewarding things you do.
Yeah.
I don't have much more to add to that. I completely concur with with what has been said. Maybe I'll share what I tell my kids when, or my daughter when I dropped her off. I said, up until now, we have given you what you have here. And with the next 4 years, you're going to complete what you have here. And with that, you have all of the elements to succeed in life. So take advantage of every single day, of every color of the leaf that changes, of every person you meet, of every professor you meet, of everything. It's carpe diem. Really maximize every day because it goes by like a flash. The 4 years when you least expect it, you're already with your cap and gown graduating. And so don't waste a single day.
Mm.
Well said, all of you. So on behalf of the admission office, I first want to again thank Emlyn, Anita, Luli. What a great way for us to spend an hour together just in conversation and reflection about your Boston College experience. And I have no doubt that the students and families that have been watching have really gained some real valuable perspective. And I really appreciate Anita from Australia and Emily from Indonesia spending your later evening with me, and Luli in Colombia, a very early morning with us. So thank you so much for spending your time and providing that perspective. To the students and families that are watching, again, we couldn't be prouder. We congratulate you again on your admission to Boston College. We know that this year in particular has presented so many different hurdles and anxiety points that we could have never have projected. At this point, you have likely multiple offers to wonderful places in hand. Use the time remaining over the course of April to make a decision that you feel good about. And if that's Boston College, we can't wait to welcome you to campus in later August. And if it's not Boston College, that's okay, because really the admission process is about you finding a place where you believe you'll thrive, where you're going to be comfortable, and where you're going to be living a great 4 years of your life. Also, if you have questions moving forward, and I know we couldn't get to everything in the Q&A this morning, but if you have additional questions, the reader of your application, that person along with their contact information is in your applicant portal. And I encourage you, if you have questions, reach out to that person. And we are more than happy to engage with you, engage with your family over the next several weeks. And of course, over the summer, as we begin to welcome you to campus to provide any assistance that we can. So with that, this has been a great morning for me, and I hope a great morning, afternoon, and evening for everyone else. Wishing you a safe and healthy remainder of April and spring. Be well. Thank you again from Boston College. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.